I'm focused on his spirit cause it keeps me from his fire. The Holy Ghost was with me, so my fear I leave behind. My sins were all diminished when he took that breath and died. And if you think I'ma give up on my God, the devil is a lie. The devil is a lie. The devil is a lie.
Hello, welcome to Black Teen News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today I want to talk about some disturbing rhetoric that I've been seeing like on the right, and people talking about anti-Semitism on the left all the time, and people point to it on the right when they were trying to like smear Donald Trump as an anti-Semite. But there are some like voices that people would consider on the right. A lot of them I think are like grifters and just red pill people that don't hold like true conservative values anyway. But it's spreading, and so there's a disturbing clip of some girls talking about like maybe Hitler had a point, going around. And there's a clip of Charlie Kirk. A mother called on to his program to talk about some of these like right-wing people who are kind of negatively influencing people, and he said, well, I know their names, I'm not going to say them. And unfortunately some of these people have been propped up by the likes of Charlie Kirk. So I hope that he makes a shift and a change with some of these folks. But Milk Bar TV did a nice little compilation, so I'm gonna show that to you guys. And also, Donald Trump admitted that Obama probably has presidential immunity. And it's so funny. I told you guys I did a TikTok about it. People were so mad at me. Someone even said I was tap dancing for Obama. And I'm like, it's just the truth. So now President Trump has said something, and now I see people mad at Trump saying, oh, so nothing's going to happen. He has presidential immunity. People were so happy that Trump had it. Like the law applies. The same law applies to him that it applies to Obama. And you might not like it, but it is what it is, guys. So we'll be chit-chatting about that. Also, I want to quickly talk about, I'm going to try to make it quickly. I did a post. I saw some videos last night of like a Andrew Wilson debate with some feminist on the whatever podcast, and a lot of her clips about abortion, which is so dumb. And I did a response to it, and I already see like the dumb responses from pro-choicers. So I just want to address that a little bit. And I did see Superman last night. I really didn't want to, didn't plan on it. And I didn't expect to like it, and I didn't. But at least I have legitimacy now when I can talk about the reasons why I didn't like it, and I don't have to speak from a place of like what I read about it in ignorance. I can flat out say that I didn't like it. So I'm not gonna make it like a big long review, but I'm gonna, I guess, complain a little bit about it if there's time at the end. Otherwise, maybe I'll just do it like completely separate video. But before we jump in everything, I'm gonna encourage you guys to go to blacktnews.com, check out different content of the website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation on the site because it does cost a stream on my site. All the good stuff you guys can support. I very much do appreciate it. Appreciate you guys very much. You guys can do super chats if you're watching on Facebook. I think they still do stars. I actually did not look into that again, but the best way to support is to go directly to the website. You guys can also look at different merch that we have available on the website as well, different t-shirts and books and so on. There's a link in the description. It'll take you to the Amazon page where you guys can see some of my books that are available. So I recommend that you guys do check out some of those things. I have more on the horizon. I'm writing all the time. I actually was watching Glory today. And I had seen like scenes of it, but I had never like sat down and really watched the whole thing before. So very good movie, stacked cast, all looking so young. Denzel and all of them just look so young back then. And very sad true story, about just how an act of bravery can inspire and change so much, even though you may not see the success. But that doesn't mean that what you did doesn't matter. So anyway, I was watching it because my book is a Civil War era book, and so I just needed to kind of get in the mood and see some stuff. And I'm doing a lot of reading and have done a lot of reading, but I sometimes like to see stuff, visually and stuff. And so, reading about that time, reading, you know, different, accounts of from different soldiers, reading or listening to the audiobook of General Grant. That is a long memoir. That's a long memoir, but very fascinating. So just a lot of studying. People say Republicans, they don't want to teach real history. We like history. We definitely like Civil War history. We're the good guys. Like, what are you talking about? We want to teach real history. We are the good guys. We're the good guys in that tale. So anyway, I'm working on my third book for my historical fiction fantasy. So still a lot of work to go, but I'm trying to make sure that I get it out by the next time I go to Motor City Comic Con, which if you're local or interested in that, I did get accepted to Motor City Comic Con in November. So I will be there in the fall with hopefully my new historical fiction book, but definitely my picture book will be there at my booth. So excited. I hope you guys are ready for the weekend. Hope you guys are ready. I don't have anything eventful other than going to church, but you guys know that I love going to church, so I'm excited about that. So anyway, let's hop to it. So I want to knock this out of the way real quick. So I watched some clips last night of Andrew Wilson talking to a feminist on the whatever podcast, and she said she was pro-choice all 9 months. And you're probably like, well, that's really crazy. And a lot of people will say that online, and they don't literally mean abortion all 9 months. They're just defining abortion as the termination of a pregnancy, which you can find like definitions that will say that. But an abortion is a pregnancy, is a termination of a pregnancy resulting in the death of the embryo or fetus. So people who don't take the full definition, they will try to make it seem like, I don't know, if you have a miscarriage and you have a D in C to like clear you out, they'll say, well, you had an abortion. That's insane. That's insane. You had a spontaneous, technically, abortion. It wasn't an induced abortion. And we were having abortion debates, and we're talking about the legality of it. We're obviously talking about how it's defined in these laws because we want to outlaw them. We're talking about a deliberate action to take someone's life. So, I've heard a secular pro-life make the distinction of like acting like that's an abortion is like saying you cremated somebody versus like you burning them alive. Like there's a a big difference between you dealing with the remains of a human being versus you killing them. you know so it's just really silly, and it's a semantics game. It's really dumb. They'll even say like if you birth a live child, it's a C-section. So if you ever run into someone like that, and you may, especially online, ask them if someone were to go to Colorado for a third trimester abortion, and that's all the context you gave. Third trimester, hey, I would like to come in here for a third trimester abortion. Do you think that they would prepare to deliver a live child for you? Or do you think that they would prepare a multi-day procedure and induce fetal demise? Because if you go on their websites, they're inducing fetal demise. She even tried to like downplay Colorado. She said there's no restrictions on Colorado. And he's like, what do you think happens at third trimester if someone was pregnant in third trimester and wanted an abortion? And she's like, well, they would induce, and they'd have a C-section or whatever. Just ignoring the fact that people do induce fetal demise. And it's got to be, I don't understand how someone so passionate about the issue could be so ignorant about it. So, and I don't like to just assume that people's intentions are bad, but I just can't see any other way because that information is so readily available if you just look at the procedures. If you could take the time to bend over backwards to make up this narrative, I'm pretty sure you could have found the truth. way quicker. So anyway, um, she went on on to say, I think that pro-lifers, they just believe that in their minds or make up that these women are having late term abortions for no reason. And it she's like, people do this for like fetal, for life of the mother, fetal abnormality or whatever, et cetera, et cetera. It was like pretending like women don't actually go and do it for elective reasons with a healthy pregnancy and healthy baby. And I know people don't want to believe that, but people who work at these clinics will tell you that they don't care what your reason is. You can come in. And there's a podcast going around of women talking about abortion, and there's women who work at a clinic that offers abortions up to 32 weeks, like technically 31 weeks and 6 days. They don't care what your reason is, and they're annoyed by the myths that you can only acquire an abortion that late if you have some kind of fetal abnormality. It's not true. So anyway, I played the beginning of her clip, and then I played that bit of that podcast to address just the fact that she's lying and to talk about late term abortion. Like, if you support this thing, just support it with your full chest. You know, if you're going to say that you support abortion all 9 months, like then say what you mean and defend it, but don't pretend like it's not happening. We know the information. The abortion doctors who actually do it and get paid well to do it, they know that you guys are lying, and then they actually don't appreciate it. And they also don't appreciate it because they believe in a woman's right to be able to do it as well. So pussyfooting around it is just annoying, probably for their part too. So anyway, I just did a quick video, posted it, and people, I referred to her as being pro-abortion, which, by the way, I'm pretty positive she referred to herself as being pro-abortion. And there are activists who just think of themselves as pro-abortion because they're not just because they don't think of it as just an evil thing that needs to be available. They think of it as a good for women, that it's available, and they don't believe maybe the child is alive, or they don't care, but they think it's a good thing. Now, I know there's a lot of people who are pro-choice who maybe are like, who just view it as like this evil thing that happens to be available. But someone left a comment like, where I'm pro-choice, I'm not pro-abortion. Well, if you identify that way, that's fine, but you're not pro all choices. You are pro the choice to have an abortion. So I said that to them. And like, well, I'm not pushing it on anyone. And this is why I wanted to talk really quickly about this. And again, I don't plan to make this a 30-minute spiel. I plan to go on my other topics. If you are pro-choice, you are not taking a passive position that's like live and let live or whatever. You are taking the position that some human beings should be discriminated against, and saying that the law should not protect them from violence. That is not a passive position. Let me put it another way. If someone was knocking on your door and said, we would like to lynch Negroes, and you're like, gosh, that's really terrible. And you're like, okay, but you don't have to do that. But we would like the choice to be able to do that. Will you sign this into law? And you don't have to do it yourself, but we would like the opportunity to do that. And I'd be like, seriously, you're about to sign that into law? You're to get people together to discriminate against me? So when people come to do that, I can't call the police because it's enshrined that they have the right to do this. And then after I'm lynched, that no one will be punished for it? Seriously, you're going to sign that? You don't think I would take that personally? You don't think I would take that personally? You think that's a passive position? No, it's not a passive position to say that you are pro-choice. And a lot of people just think like, oh, it's just kind of not my business. I'm pro-choice. You make your own decisions. I'm going to trust women, right? But some women make egregious, stupid choices. Some women make evil choices. But I don't think this should be a choice. Not this thing. Not to murder someone. And you can say it's not murder because it's legal. It's not legal everywhere, or you can say it's not murder because they don't have consciousness. Well, that's stupid. Like that's your opinion. It's an unjustified killing. It's a premeditated homicide. I usually just frame it that way because that's exactly what it is. And most people will say, well, that is murder. Is it though? Yes. So, but they had said pro-choice does not mean pro-abortion. Pro-choice means that no matter what your personal feelings or beliefs about abortion are, you understand it is not your place to make a decision for another woman about what she can and can't do with her body. And so many women don't even believe this because they were up in arms about COVID and people getting the vaccine and so on. As a matter of fact, there was a abortion activist, Jessica Valenti, I think is her name, and she was defending a singer, like a British singer, I believe, who had 4 or 5 abortions, and she was condemning pro-choice activists who were upset that she exercised her right to have as many abortions as she wants. And she's like, if you're for bodily autonomy, you need to be for bodily autonomy. But I went back and searched her tweets, and she was upset at people for not getting the jab, for not wearing their masks, and all that stuff. And I understand she had a kid who was compromised as far as their immune system and so on. So I can understand being concerned. But to be so, you're apparently not so pro bodily autonomy and don't tell a woman what to do with her body because they didn't have that kind of energy for COVID. I'm not saying there weren't consistent people, but she wasn't. And a lot of these people weren't. I remember the pandemic. I remember the pandemic, guys. So anyway, it's just not true. It's just not true. What you support is an evil thing, and maybe you think the evil thing is a necessary evil, but you just stand 10 toes down and you defend it. But don't pretend like I'm not really for it. Yes, you are. You are pro the choice to do this evil thing, and it takes someone's life. It's not like free speech where it might like hurt someone's feelings. And you may not like hate speech, but you think people should be able to say things that upset folks because you don't like the alternative of people like censoring stuff, which you can't say, just about anything anyway. You can't defame people or whatever. You're not totally free from consequences. But it's directly intended to end someone's life. So just please stop it. It's so annoying. It's so annoying. So anyway, let's move on. I want to show you guys this video. It was on Fresh and Fit, I think, is the podcast with Myron Gaines, and these are like red pill bros, like and they'll bring on women and they'll mock them and stuff, and they brought on, I don't know how old these girls are. They look like they're young. They look like they're adults, I assume. Maybe they're teetering on the line. But they got some wild things to say here. So just a little warning. I don't know if this will get me flagged or not if you drop too many like Hitler words. You get the internet starts getting a little they feel sus about it. So anyway, here we go.
What do you guys think about Hitler?
What if the Jewish did something to the Germans that made them act a certain way, but nobody wants to talk about it? Like the Jews don't want to take accountability.
They don't.
That's
yes.
I'm with you on that one.
Okay.
That's why like there was up to something, so the Germans wanted to take them out.
Like
it had to be something. Like Germans wanted to take them out, all of them out.
They damn near wiped everybody off the
go.
map.
They started it. So get somebody
Damn,
that
he's
mad.
choosing hard. Like, yeah, talk shit about them.
The Holocaust was the only way he can take out a huge population, like a huge amount of Jews all in one setting. But I already know what's going on. Like, I'm not dumb. Like, I know, like, the Jews did something. That's why they sent up here. They're trying to take back, like, they're trying to take back and get repercussions, especially from America, like from Americans. So they're taking over the government and stuff like that.
I'm telling you, how do we take them down?
How do we take them down?
Yeah.
I mean,
Gotta kill the motherfuckers.
I hate to say it.
My bad, y'all.
My
bad.
Hitler, he had the plan, but his plan was just too, like, very, like, gruesome, if we can say.
Listen,
He said,
he had
"Fuck
to do
the
what he had to do.
world."
But he had to do it.
He was like,
Listen, he was trying to save the world.
I
It didn't
agree.
work out. He just didn't
I
do what he
mean,
had to do.
Jews are the reason why the healthcare system and everything around us in the government.
Why do these people believe this? And she just studied talking and saying all this stuff. Why does she believe all this crazy stuff? And then these other girls like going along with it, and it seems like and then Myron, anti-Semitic trash, and his buddy egging him on and saying all that stuff too. And it seemed like there was another black girl on there too who's like, we need to kill him or something. And I'm like, where's all this coming from? When I see stuff like this, I don't know, when I see crazy stuff like this, or when I see people like doing mob stuff, like the flash mobs and robbing folks and so on, knockout games, my first thought is, who raised you? Where are your parents? How did this happen? Like, aren't you ashamed? Like, I would never think of embarrassing my parents like this and just, causing such shame to come upon my family name. I think about those things. It's not like, I'm a high class society or something. I just was raised with some sense, and I just wouldn't want to bring some kind of shame to my family. And she dares to sit there and say, I'm not stupid. You're not stupid. So you kind of are. I would like to think that you're ignorant. Are you just lying about all this? I mean, she's probably just saying a lot of stuff that she doesn't even understand, but she's just brainwashed. A lot of these kids are brainwashed to believe that like Hitler was doing a good. How much can you know? I know they teach this stuff in school. I'm assuming you graduated. When I was a kid in elementary, there was like a book about the Holocaust with just like photos, like terrible photos of like concentration camps and different stuff that I had seen and would look at and stuff. I'm like, this was a terrible thing that happened. And by the way, people are retweeting this, talking about like, you don't care about what Hitler said about black people either? He was racist. It wasn't just the Jews he didn't like. You think you would have been part of his master race, baby? Like, come on. But there's such hatred just directed at the Jews. How could they be in charge of everything? This small little group of people of everything? Of everything? Do you guys recall? I've talked about this before, and I know I've shown this clip when Candace Owens was interviewing Ami Kozak on her show. This was after October the 7th. If you've seen my long video about like Ben Shapiro and Candace Owens and the long saga of their fight, it's the clip is in there. I don't know if her shows from the Daily Wire are still on YouTube at all. They might be all hidden or deleted or whatever. So only way to see it might be to watch that actual video that I did. But he mentioned that Hamas doesn't share the same values as the West, and then it went into like he talked about how they're a danger to the West and Jews and stuff, and Candace was like, well, Jews live very comfortably in America, and he's just like, they live comfortably in other places in Europe and stuff before World War II. And then she's just like, come on, like, I just can't take it seriously when people invoke things like the Holocaust or slavery to say that things are going to happen again. And he's like, no, people did live very comfortably, but there were all kinds of different social ills and economic things going on in Germany, and they decided to blame the Jews. So when a lot of Jews, they just want to be left alone because they remember what happened when they became the focus. So it makes them really nervous. I mean, when people are anti-Semitic, I guess in general, but when there's these conspiracies about them doing all these things and being in charge of all these things, because obviously when it doesn't go well for someone and people are like, well, it's those darn Jews, they're afraid that they are going to be singled out and annihilated. Or if not totally annihilated, a lot of them will just pay the cost, pay the price. And there have been, ever since October the 7th, there have been people afraid to send their Jewish kids to school, which, by the way, Columbia like caved on Donald Trump and are paying like a settlement stuff and admitting, you know, that they did wrong. So another huge victory for Donald Trump. But yeah, they're concerned. It's wild to me, like after October 7th, people just going in places in New York and tearing down flyers of missing people. Like, how evil do you have to be to just be like, I don't want people to see this. I don't want people to know. People protesting Gal Gadot, like, and people when they show videos of what happened on October the 7th. How could people be so evil and so brainwashed and so dumb? I just don't understand. And I do say, like, where her parents, she seems to be a grown woman. Maybe her parents are racist and stuff too. I don't know. Maybe that's where she learned it from. That's another thing about doing all this crazy stuff. People look and say, like, you ain't had no good home training. And they start looking at the parents sideways. I would never want to shame my parents like that. Obviously we were raised differently. Kind of a different generation thing too, I guess. Cause I'm, you know, probably got a good at least 10 years on these girls. You know, I would probably think maybe more than 10 years. They look really young to me. Not like minors, but I don't know. I'm probably more than a decade older than them. But it's disturbing. Milk Bar TV, if you don't follow them, they're worth following, I think. But Charlie Kirk had someone call on his show to ask, like, where's a lot of disturbing rhetoric coming from, and they put some clips together. And I hope folks like Charlie Kirk will look in the mirror about some of the people he's platforming.
My young adult son's eyes were open to a lot of the lies during COVID, but now I'm hearing things from him that it makes me fear for his discernment. For example, he expressed some anti-Semitic takes on history, that maybe Hitler's motives for wanting to be rid of the Jews weren't so wrong. Do you know some of the names of the influencers who are taking advantage of the conservative youth movement?
So first of all, I do know the names. Get on our feet to welcome to the stage Candace Owens.
The Nazis experimented on innocent people. They experimented on twins. I mean, some of the stories, by the way, sound completely absurd.
So give it up for Dave Smith, everybody.
Yeah, we all know Churchill is the villain. I thought that was common knowledge.
I was in London 2 weeks ago. Like that, they didn't win the war in any meaningful way.
Following World War II, things kind of started falling apart.
It almost couldn't have gone worse.
I'm not going to repeat them because that only makes them and their little irrelevant circle bigger.
So I wanted to invite you onto the podcast.
Hitler was awesome. Hitler was right. And the Holocaust didn't happen.
Jake Shields, who's a friend of mine.
She said something along the lines of, oh yeah, 6 million Jews died in the Holocaust. And I was like, oh, I'm just so sick of hearing that, you know, you playing along with something that you just know is bullshit.
Dave Smith, and I like Dave.
Nick's a real talented guy.
Even someone like Daryl Cooper. You know, I talked to Daryl recently. We kind of made amends.
America's most honest and best informed historian, Daryl Cooper.
Churchill was the chief villain of the Second World War. He's primarily responsible for that war becoming what it did.
I mean, I really love Europe, truly, as an American. Yeah. But, like, it's so degraded. I'm not even going to say would it actually be worse or not.
It was an existential threat because if Germany won, they would have seized Russia. Who knows what the world would look like today?
Right. It's hard to say. Worse, better. We have no idea to know, right?
Oh, God. He's just very pro-Germany. Like,
listen to what he's talking about. Like, he was trying to, like, encourage community, encourage, you know, family values, right. Remove the perversion. Mm-hmm. You know, he wanted to instill morals.
I like Hitler. I do not. The Holocaust is not what happened. Let's look at the facts of that. And Hitler has a lot of redeeming qualities.
I'm not going to repeat them because that only makes them and their little irrelevant circle bigger.
There's something about you and I coming together.
Yeah, so Milk Bar does good work putting all that stuff kind of together. There were other folks who were associated with Turning Point USA who, I pointed out after the October 7th stuff because people were coming after Charlie Kirk for some of the things that he said and did, which, by the way, Candace Owens not too long ago pointed out some of the rhetoric from Charlie Kirk after October the 7th, which I put in my video that covered the Candace Owens Ben Shapiro saga. That after October 7th, he was on Patrick Bet David's show, and he talked about like the security failures and how suspicious they were. And he asked the question, like, was there a stand down order? Which I thought was a pretty like irresponsible question to put out there. I understand kind of like maybe thinking it or whatever, but like putting it out there as if it's like into the such a huge podcast, being such a huge influencer yourself. And now we know more about like what kind of transpired or led to that particular day. But Candace Owens brought that up, like, hey, this was what people believed Charlie said back then, So I know people get a lot of clicks and views for some reason on Twitter with this stuff, and their engagement has kind of been wild. I know that Elon decided to start like demonetizing some of this stuff a bit, but it gets still a lot of people engagement to talk about this stuff. And if not on X, on YouTube, I don't know why there's such a fringe group that's motivated to say these things. I don't know what drives them. I don't know how much like Nick Fuentes really admires Hitler and how much is him just being provocative. I think Kanye, maybe he's not well. Kanye's, kind of not fair to talk about, but he's said in a lot of like anti-Semitic stuff and did that Hail Hitler song, which I think he took down and changed or whatever, and apologized for it. But he's not well, so he kind of got to always put an asterisk next to like a Kanye conversation. But what gets me though is all the people who were willing to be in his video singing that, like in the music video and stuff. It kind of reminds me of the guy who was running against Glenn Youngkin. He was like I can't remember his name. He was already governor or whatever before, but I think it was a Lincoln Project paid people to have like tiki torches as if they were like the Charlottesville folks or loved Charlottesville or supporters of what happened in Charlottesville when there was like the Unite the Right rally and someone like drove a car into a woman and she died. And that was obviously a terrible day, which Nick Fuentes was a part of that, the group's marching at that time, and thought it was amazing. So that's a little background on Nick Fuentes. But the video, like the pictures of the guys with the tiki torches, like there was a black guy among them. And so they were there trying to pretend to as if they were for Glenn Youngkin's team, but they got outed in an exposed. So they looked like clowns ultimately, and we know Glenn Youngkin ended up being the governor of, and he ended up winning. But when I see that picture, I always think about like how little self-respect does this black guy have to kind of sell himself out like that, to do that. So I don't understand how you could get all these black guys to get together to kind of, do they believe this stuff, or is it just a paycheck? I don't get it. There's just things I couldn't do for money. There's just things I couldn't do. So it's all kind of foreign to me. Very strange to me. But I think I was disappointed to see Tucker Carlson on like Turning Point USA's roster this summer, not too long ago, given some of the wild stuff that Tucker has been saying, some of the people he's been platforming, like history revisionists. And it's funny when Douglas Murray went on, after he went on Joe Rogan's show and talked to Dave Smith and debated him a bit, Dave went on Tucker's show and he trashed Douglas Murray. But when Tucker was still on Fox, he said Douglas Murray was one of the most like important journalists there was. So what's with this switch up? What's with this grift? What's the origin of it? Why? Like, what is the ultimate goal to make it seem like it wasn't a good thing that what we won World War II, or that Churchill was the chief villain, or maybe Hitler had his reasons, or Osama bin Laden had his reasons, I thought it was Dave Smith who also helped to like recirculate Osama bin Laden's letter, but I saw Glenn Greenwald bring it up recently, and some other folks on like TikTok bring it up recently, as if it's all just because of USA interfering in other countries, and just ignoring the fact that in Islam, you might have Muslim friends, you may be Muslim watching, but it's just they conquer. You want to talk about colonizers? They are a religion of colonizers. That's what they do. They spread Islam through violence. That's what Muhammad did. We've been dealing with this forever, even before all this like Middle East stuff. We had to form a navy to fight Muslim pirates. There's a great video of I think Hitchens on Bill Maher talking about it. Maybe we can find that really quick. Let me see. I did want to play another clip, a compilation of Candace. Now this is her responding to the lawsuit allegations from the Macrons, which they did mention some of her anti-Semitic stuff, and she claims that she hasn't denied the Holocaust or downplayed it or whatever. So he's also got some receipts. So you guys would have seen some of these because it was in the other video, but another great video from Milk Bar TV. I know some of you guys I've talked about Candace a lot, and I dislike Candace. I've been warning against her for a while, but she is a blatant liar. Some people are like, she tells the truth. She's well researched. Guys, she is a liar. She's blatantly lying about this stuff.
Actually and intentionally defames me throughout the filing. It says all of these things that are untrue. Here are just a few of the things, such as a blood libel.
Catholics and Christians were going missing on Passover, and then they would find bodies, across Europe, and they were able to trace them back to Jews.
And Holocaust distortion. Elie Wiesel, he fictionalized stories in his book Night. With him, they're establishing educational books related to the Holocaust, going so far as to dismiss the atrocities of Joseph Mengelé's medical experiments as mere propaganda.
The Nazis experimented on innocent people.
Oh.
That just sounds like bizarre propaganda. None of that is true. None of that is true.
Yeah, these folks have been they're just lying. They're just lying. I was gonna put she a couple weeks ago she claimed that there were folks paying other folks to talk about her and try to bring her down or whatever. And she claimed that there was some kind of rabbi group paying pastors to talk about her, and she was upset and complaining because they were saying that she said certain things about the Holocaust. She's like, and they did it without any proof. I'm like, Okay, maybe they didn't list examples in there, but I could definitely show you the proof, and you guys saw some of the proof there. So this is a really big issue. Because they still have a lot of followers. She has a lot of followers. Tucker has a lot of followers. And that you heard that mother call on to Charlie Kirk, and she's like, I'm questioning the judgment of my child. And because we've lost so much trust in the government and our systems, you know, she said that COVID like opened his eyes to so many people like lying, you know, about so much stuff. So now people just have such mistrust about everything. So that they go deeper into like just conspiracy land. Like everybody's been lying to us. Oh, I found out this new thing. Like it's not, a lot of these things aren't new things. Like Candace will always say, oh, this new thing. They're like anti-Semitic, neo-Nazi theories that have been out there, you know, that you stumbled upon in some book or whatever, and now you're introducing it like mainstream, you know, but people have been saying all sorts of terrible lies for a long time, but people latch on to it and think that they've discovered some kind of new truth, like Gnosticism or something, you know, like, oh, it's some kind of new truth. And they just can't sort of listen to reason, even when it's kind of right in their face. I did find the clip that I was talking about, so I'm going to go ahead and post it for you guys, because I do think it's an important sort of a thing to realize.
Can we stop saying, could we just agree on this? Could we stop saying that we're fighting them over there so that we don't have to fight them over here?
Yes.
They're fighting us over there because we're over there. A recent study by the Center for Strategic and International Studies, I know that sounds like a bullshit organization.
It is a
but
bullshit organization.
It is?
Yeah.
Why do you say that? I heard it was a very...
I've been studying it for years. How much time have you got?
Well, anyway...
You can hardly pronounce its name. I've known it for a long time. It is a bullshit organization. It's like the Lancet and the casualty figures. It's a junk science by junk scholars.
But all right, tell me why I should believe...
However, you're right on your premise.
...that they really want to fight us in Dollywood, but they're not.
Well, let me give you an example from Mr. Jefferson, since you asked me to mention my book, which I happily do, available fine bookstores everywhere. In 1788, when the United States was barely a country,
right,
it was having its sailors taken as slaves by the Barbary states, the states of the Ottoman Empire in North Africa.
Tripoli.
Tripoli,
Shores of Tripoli.
Shores of Tripoli. And its people, its ships stopped. Its crews carried off into slavery. We estimate 1.5 million European and American slaves taken between 1750 and 1815. Jefferson and Adams went to their ambassador in London and said, why do you do this to us? The United States has never had a quarrel with the Muslim world of any kind. We weren't in the Crusades. We weren't in the war in Spain. Why do you do this to our people and our ships? Why do you plunder and enslave our people? And the ambassador said very plainly, Mr. Abdul Rahman said, because the Quran gives us permission to do so, because you are infidels. And that's our answer. And Jefferson said, well, in that case, I will send a navy which will crush your state, which he did. And a good thing,
but
too. Islamic fundamentalism is not created by American democracy. It's a lie to say so. It's a masochistic lie. And it excuses those who are the real criminals, and it blames us for the attacks made upon us.
I think that he put it great. You know, don't like all of his atheism stuff, but you know, he made some good points here or there. People would say like I think George Bush was like, they hate us for our freedoms. And I saw a great post. I think I shared it with you guys. Someone like pointed out like this is like a secular way of like putting it, but it's not just our freedoms. Like they are driven ideologically to fight against us because we are infidels. And the Jewish world has captured their minds for a long time and they want to get rid of them, but that's not the end of the goal. So people who are like, oh, Iran, let them have a bomb. Why can't they have a nuke? We have nukes. Israel has nukes. You're insane. You're insane. Absolutely insane. People who chanting death to America. Well, they don't really mean that. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. And I don't understand people pretending otherwise. I don't understand people pretending otherwise. Anyway, be very careful. If your kids are watching online content, like be careful when they're watching Fresh and Fit. Actually, I don't think they should watch that. I'm going to just tell you, I don't think they should watch that. That's my 2 cents. You're the parent, you can turn it off or whatever. Especially you have your kids are that young that you could have authority over what they watch, but like that of course, not the Andrew Tate stuff. People used to say when I would talk about Pearl and other folks, like, they're on the same side. Just because people trash feminism and here or there doesn't mean that we're on the same side, that they're standing up for conservative values. A lot of these people, you see, like a lot of these anti-Semitic stuff on the far left and also the far right, and it's just like a horseshoe theory. Like eventually they they believe and want a lot of things that are similar, even though they kind of look like they're on opposite ends of the spectrum. But a lot of these people don't have true conservative values, and you'll see them trash family units all the time, and why should men get married, and things that aren't going to be good for our society. And they could say some things that are going to motivate some men sometimes, and maybe they'll draw on that audience, but then they'll poison their minds with this other stuff, and it's just not good. Tucker Carlson used to be a household name. I would come home and I'd DVR his stuff, but they have some really kind of evil ideology that they're pushing nowadays. Him and Marty McBade and Daryl Cooper and Candace Owens, and so you might have liked them before, but it's okay to grow up and realize that these folks are dishonest, and for some reason they're pushing these narratives. Some people think that Candace is like insane. I don't know, because I don't understand the reason why she's doing a lot of things, but I've seen crazy people. I'm just not like totally convinced. I'm not totally convinced. But I can't pinpoint her motivations. They're just sort of beyond me. Because I don't get it. I couldn't sell my soul for some of the stuff that she's been saying. So anyway, I want to mention something. I saw an interview with Donald Trump today. He was asked about Obama and presidential immunity, and guess what, guys? He believed that Obama is probably going to benefit from presidential immunity. As a matter of fact, he said that Obama should thank him. He said that Obama should thank him for presidential immunity. He said he owes me, I think were his exact words. So there's some people online who are upset saying, oh, so nothing's going to happen to him. You're saying he's just going to get away with it? The same presidential immunity that really helped Trump out of a jam did apply to Barack Obama. And I went through this yesterday, and I went through it the day before as well. And some folks are really mad at me. Some folks are mad at me on TikTok because I said that Obama is not going to go to jail and he probably has presidential immunity. And someone even said, oh, I never thought that you'd be tap dancing for Obama. And I'm like, I probably could list more legitimate reasons to not like Obama than you can. And I said I didn't like his policies, and I didn't like him personally. I mean, I don't know him on like we've met face to face, kind of level, but just things as far as beyond policy, like on a moral level as a man, I don't like him. I don't like him. So I'm certainly not trying to stick up for him because I like him. I'm just trying to tell people the facts of the situation. And if you don't like the facts, I guess you can go elsewhere. But I don't want people to just be so upset at Trump and to be so upset at Republicans because they're not moving forward with something when they don't have the authority to do anything. And you could be frustrated with presidential immunity now that it's not benefiting your guy. But Trump was in a jam. He was in a jam. Now, maybe he would have just they wouldn't have moved fast enough and he would have got elected and they would have dropped everything anyway. But You know, they went to the Supreme Court, they had their ruling, and he got his total immunity. Did you guys not think it wasn't going to apply to Obama? I think it was pretty obvious that presidents had immunity anyway. You can't just go and, I don't know, have Obama take accountability for droning people and whatnot. It's not how it works, and it's not how it has worked. And Trump has had to push the legal system and have them clarify some pretty obvious things because people kept going after him. And is it right that so many people kept going after him? I don't think he always behaved in the best sort of ways, guys. Let's be frank about that. But the ways that they kept going after him, do I think were fair? No. But Obama's not going to jail. And people try to tell me, like, no, you don't get presidential immunity for treason. He didn't commit treason. I know you don't like that he delegitimized Trump, and there's a bit of conspiracy there, but it just doesn't rise to that level. I'm sorry if you, it just is what it is. But Trump is correct. You know, he was upset the other day when he said, you know, he committed treason and we're gonna go after them, except or what other stuff they said. They talked to the press secretary and she had to pivot because the answer is obviously that Obama has presidential immunity, and Trump probably had some talking to with his people and was like, oh, he probably has presidential immunity and probably doesn't actually want to see Obama in jail. Maybe personally, maybe a little bit, maybe a lot personally, but for like the good of the country, probably not. Probably not. Because he had more sense than the Democrats did. And he didn't want to put Hillary in jail. You know. And then they still came after him. And you could say, well, he should learn his lesson. It doesn't matter. Obama still has it. So it is what it is. Last thing I want to talk about before I let you guys go. I did see Superman last night and I didn't like it. I'm gonna try not to spoil it, but there's one thing I want to mention that I didn't like that will be a spoiler. So if you want to see me on Monday, I understand, and exit here. I'm not terribly fond of, I guess, James Gunn and his style of things. I liked the first Guardians of the Galaxy. Some people put it as like a top tier Marvel movie. To me, it's still like mid tier. The second one was okay. I didn't see the third one. People were like, but the third one was so good. I'm so disenchanted with Marvel. I'm not running to the theaters to see anything that they make. That's just kind of how it is. But I thought, I don't know. I really didn't feel like it had heart. I really felt like it wasn't done. I don't know, didn't flow well to kind of feel the emotional gravity of the scenes. I didn't like some of the flying scenes. The fight scenes didn't really engage me too much. I thought so many of the characters were caricatures, and you could say, well, it's a comic book. I thought it was a little, it's still a movie. You know, I I just thought it was a little too much. Like, I'm Mr. Terrific. Like, I thought it was a little too much. I thought that Nicholas Hoult was great as Lex, but there was something at the end that annoyed me. But otherwise, I thought he was kind of the best thing in the film, which I believe he's the highest paid actor. Some people were complaining about that because he's not the lead, but I mean, he is the lead villain, and he's been in a lot of films. So people negotiate that stuff. He was, he was the best thing in the film. Lois was good. I wasn't too enchanted with the Superman. I thought he was fine, but I don't know. There's something about the film, and I think a lot of this falls on the director, is that it felt not cinematic. Let's go sit down and watch a movie, especially like modern now. It felt I don't know, in some ways CW crossover special, with better effects, but I didn't love all the effects. And I thought the story was really weak. Especially like a huge plot point, like a turn, like a big break in like the villain fighting Lex or whatever was it was just too contrived, I guess, too much of a coincidence. Um, the how everything kind of fell into place for them all. Um, I thought his parents were too much. People really, really didn't. There's some people thought it was fine how they portrayed Clark's parents, like his Earth parents. I thought it wasn't as bad as some people were saying, but they had like really thick, like Southern accents. I'm like, I don't. Pretty sure that's how people from Kansas talk. I didn't laugh one single time. And there were a lot of things in there that were meant to be funny. I know other people laughed. I think my dad laughed at stuff when he went with my brother, but I didn't laugh a single time. I'm like, I know that's Marvel humor there. Like I can identify it. Like I'm supposed to laugh here, but it's not funny. I'm supposed to laugh here. It's not funny. There shouldn't be a joke here right here. Like, but you want me to laugh. The do you guys remember in the first Avengers when at the end when Hulk like did the smash thing with Loki? That pretty much happens. Like they kind of steal that. Um and still not funny. People are like, "What about the dog? Do you like Crypto?" I know this is a red flag for a lot of people, but I'm not too fond of animals. Like when I come to a door, the dog comes to the door, and people are like, "Oh, he's great! Like he's won't hurt anybody." I'm just like, I don't know your dog. I don't know if that's true. Like, so the idea of like a superpowered dog with no boundaries doesn't excite me. It kind of concerns me. So I'm not like, oh, what a cute destructive dog you got there. I know Crypto exists and stuff. It's just the dog didn't make the movie better for me. I know a lot of people love dogs. I'm just one of those people who don't. But the thing that I really didn't like was, and this is a spoiler, so just FYI, the thing that I really didn't like that infuriated me, and I knew it before because I watched Nerdrotic talk about the film, so I was aware um, of the whole plot. Some things were so dumb. I didn't like that Superman was not sent to Earth by his parents to, kind of help mankind, better mankind, or whatever. They sent him there as the last son of Krypton because their planet was dying, but they sent a message and they're like, "Oh, we love you," all this stuff, and the message was like corrupted, so he couldn't he didn't know the full message. And they sent him there. They said, the people are simple, they don't understand, go ahead and rule them, you know kill people in your way, like bring them to heal people who are in your way, and take many wives, spread your seed. And I was mad when I heard that before. And there's some people saying, "Oh, well, the message was corrupted because it ended up getting out. Like Lex ended up like solving, like fixing the message and like leaking it everywhere. And people are like, "Oh my gosh, Superman's not here to save people. He's here to have a harem." And they kept mentioning the harem like it was a thing. And every time they did, it made me upset. And then at the same time, I know James Gunn, we got fired from Guardians of the Galaxy because of really perverted tweets, like he was fantasizing like little boys touching him, and has wrote blogs about how he wanted to sleep with like Supergirl and other kinds, like he's already a gross kind of guy. So it's just that on top of that, versus he already did a character that was going around the galaxy sleeping with women to spread a seed, and that was in the Guardians of the Galaxy. Ego. That was a second film. So he's repeating something he literally just did and changing an enormous part of Superman's lore. And I just hated it. I hated it. Um and I was just angry. When I saw Superman, the one with Henry Cavill, Man of Steel, when his dad died in like the tornado, That infuriated me. I thought that scene was so stupid. And it what I had to tell myself, you like, and they had changed things. It was weird. Like Krypton, I'm like, gosh, this is so alien. It's weird. I'm like, I'm kind of digging some of the stuff. I'm like, I was open to like changes in how they're telling the story, whatever. But when it got to that, I'm like, you have to calm down. You have to calm down. If you want any chance of liking the rest of this movie, you have to calm down. I was so mad. And then I was just like, okay, let that go. I still don't like that scene. But this made me mad for a long time throughout the rest of the movie. And I knew it was coming. I already knew. But hearing them like ask Superman, like, you have a harem? I hated it. I hated it. I really did. And I don't think the rest of the movie did things well enough to take such a gigantic liberty like that. I think, as far as it being the big blue Boy Scout stuff, that, I thought that was good. There are moments, when he's fighting a big monster, he's like, no, we need to find a way to save it, move it somewhere where it can be saved and not kill it. Like, there were things that were very Superman. He made some dumb decisions, but Superman does dumb things sometimes. He's not Batman, So I'm like, okay, that was dumb, but to me that still seems very Superman. So I'm not upset about that. But the changing the lore with his parents just really, really upset me. And when I found about it online, I told my youngest sister, I told my siblings about it. They didn't like it. But my youngest sister, Tina, she's like, I really don't like it because it bothers me because Superman is kind of like a Christ figure, like the last son of Krypton coming to save humanity and stuff. And Joel Berry from the Babylon Bee had pointed that out too. And people were like, no, like, what do you mean the authors were Jewish and he's more like a Moses figure? And everyone's just like, Moses is a Christ figure. Moses is a Christ figure. But it's changed into like, she had said like Mormon multi gods taking wives kind of mythology. It was the first thing that kind of popped in her head. I was just like, it sounds Muslim. Muhammad, I guess. Spread your seed through violence and so on. So I just really disliked it. It wasn't like the worst thing ever, but I didn't like it. And and you can say, well, Christina, you didn't give it a fair shot. You didn't. I knew that I wouldn't like it. Like from the plot points and different things like that. Plus, I've never been a huge James Gunn fan. Like, again, Guardians is not a top tier movie for me. I did like it, but it was, and the humor, like, it's just too kind of quirky moments where they wanted it to be funny when I'm like, this needs to be serious and this is distracting. I'm not a fan. Not a fan. So I had said with myself, I'm probably just not gonna go see it because I don't think I'm gonna like it. And I kind of wanted to talk about it. And I was maybe gonna talk about some things without even saying it or whatever, just like the Superman like changing with his parents stuff, which I could have talked about it. There's enough context for me to have talked about it without seeing it. But or I knew enough about it. That would have been fine. But my sister still wanted to see it. So I went to go see it with her yesterday. But I didn't like it. And I would say, well, at least I had Charlie's cheesesteak before, but Charlie's wasn't hitting it yesterday either. So it was just a day of failures. It was a day of failures. But there are some people coping and trying to say that Luthor had corrupted the message, or maybe Brainiac or somebody corrupted the message. And they took a lot of time in the movie to reiterate that it was a real message. Now if they go back on that without any sort of threading in that it was fake, like some kind of hint or something, it's just going to seem like a retcon. Like they changed their mind. They could always come back and say, "Oh, Brainiac corrupted it" or whatever. They could make that decision, but how the story is laid out, to me, that would just kind of be bad storytelling. And it would definitely seem like a retcon. So this is the route it seems like they wanted to go, and I didn't like it. But was it woke? Was it political? I mean, I think people are kind of looking at the war that was going on, which they could have definitely did a different story in relating it to Gaza and Israel, and it probably is. But people complaining about like the politics of Superman, the whole DC universe and Marvel universe is it belongs to the lefties, they took over the comic books. They did. Superman has a gay son who's not married, but dating some kind of climate change activist with pink hair. Or was that Tim Drake? They made my favorite Robin gay. I'm like, his man's been straight for 30 years. He's been alive as long as, basically I have. And all of a sudden he no longer is. Okay. They do self-insert stuff like I Am Starfire, where Starfire had a fat goth looking daughter. They just Wonder Woman had one of the Amazons was like a trans woman reborn, and there's just a lot of really weird woke stuff in these writers have taken over this content and they inject their views in it all the time. Like they've won that ground. I'm sorry to say that to you. So if you're upset about Superman being political or whatever, if they keep pushing forward through this stuff through the cinematic universe, eventually you might get to that part where they do a story on his son who's dating a guy, and it's already weaved into the comic books. And Marvel's very woke and stuff too. Like I talked about many times, and this is one of the things that really, really ticked me off about Marvel. It's just one example, but it seems really extreme to me. The Punisher, they would take some people online would take the Punisher, the skull symbol, and they would put like a blue line in the skull to like be pro police for some reason. I don't know. It was just a thing that was going on the internet. And Marvel didn't like that people were doing that. And I don't know, instead of hitting people with like copyright infringement strikes or demanding stuff get taken down on the internet or whatever, they just decided to change the Punisher's logo. So you hate that people are associating police, supporting police with Frank Castle, who was like a special agent or whatever. And you just decided to flat out change his logo because you didn't want it to be associated with supporting the police. They did a comic, a Captain America comic, where they made Jordan Peterson like the Red Skull. Like, so they've already won so much ground on this stuff, and that's why a lot of people are turning to like manga and reading that stuff, like Dana Lash. Like people online were kind of making fun of her because she's reading anime or watching anime now, and she's like, there's a lot of good storylines in it. It's the storylines are very diverse, and it's got good action, and it's not woke. I mean, you can find like some woke and things you may not like in some of them, but a lot of them, they just focus on their good story and that's it, and then they end. they tell their story and then it's over. There isn't some like left-wing person taking it over and using it for political purposes or whatever. So the comic book industry is not doing well, and a lot of people are turning to foreign entertainment. But I mean, I've been watching anime since I was a kid, so I hadn't watched new ones in a while. But I guess last year I got that Crunchyroll subscription, so now I'm starting to watch more things. I'm like, I'm paying for it, I should watch some stuff, and I found some good stuff. Anyway, I don't know if Superman. I heard Superman's not doing well overseas, and it has made like $400 million. But now Fantastic Four came out last night, which I'm hearing online that people are saying it's good. I don't know. I don't really plan to see that one either. But you know, that's gonna start sucking up eyeballs and taking money and stuff. So I don't know if Superman's gonna do the distance to make $1 billion. But I don't know. They probably feel like it's a good starting point for James Gunn. But changing the background of his parents and saying the reason why they sent him there and the harem jokes, I didn't like it. I don't know how many times I can say I didn't like it. But anyway, thank you guys for joining me today. Please go to blacktunes.com, check out different content on the website, articles, reviews, etc. If you like what I do, please consider leaving a donation on the website because it does cost a stream, run the site, all the good stuff you guys can support. I very much appreciate it. Appreciate you guys. You guys can also look up different t-shirts and mugs and support on the site by getting different merch. So we got, like I said, t-shirts and mugs and so on. I do also have mini books myself that I've written. If you like good sort of content, like this is the American Civil War meets X-Men. I mentioned a little bit earlier how I was working on my historical fiction fantasy series. So I'm working on the 3rd book right now, plan to have it out this fall. But you guys can check out that stuff. I do also have stuff for younger readers. Like this is a children's chapter book called Super Kid. Lots of really great conservative values in there. So go ahead and check that out. But there's a link in the description you guys can check out. That'll take you to an Amazon page where you guys can see my things. So yeah, God bless you guys. And I will see you on Monday.